Welcome to True Wellness with Dr. D, the podcast where we explore what it takes to live with vitality, balance, and purpose. I am Dr. D, and each week I'll bring you powerful tools, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you thrive in every area of your life. From health and wellness to mindset and navigating life's challenges, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of true well-being. Let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. I am excited today. Today's topic is a hot topic for me because we are going to talk about supplements. We're going to talk about the supplement industry, and we are going to talk about the hidden dangers of supplements that nobody else is talking about, but that we all need to be on the lookout and aware of. So I am joined today by one of my favorite people in the world. I know sometimes he sees my email or hears my phone call and is like, uh-oh, it's Danielle. So his name is Nickolas Labinsky, and he is the CEO of a company that I have used their products and worked with for, almost 20 years now. So Nick is the CEO of Premier Research Labs, and Premier Research Labs, in my mind, is the leading company in the supplement industry that is not just producing extraordinary products, but it is the reason why they produce extraordinary products that we all need to be on the lookout for. And that comes to the purity of what it is that they are producing and the quality of what it is. So Nick, he is the only CEO in the industry, in the supplement manufacturing industry, who actually has a background in quality control. He has been working with Premier Research Labs for over 16 years, has multiple positions throughout the company, including COO. And he's got this deep commitment to transformation, extraordinary quality, community, and he is a driving force to making sure that Premier Research Labs is really setting that industry benchmark for purity, safety, efficacy, all of those things that we want a supplement company to have. And yet it's really lacking in the world. And we're gonna go all into that, right, Nick? So Labinsky's leadership not only elevates product excellence, but it also empowers health professionals and consumers to demand more, because as we know more, we do better, and someone is setting that bar, everything gets better. So he's really shaping the future of superior nutrition with integrity and precision. So thank you so much, Nick, for being here today.
Thank you, Danielle. That was an amazing intro, and I have to say first that I love it when Danielle reaches out. I have to put that out there. It's amazing, and Danielle's been with us a long time. In fact, I've been with the company 16 years, and that 16 years, like she said, I went through many different positions, and I was very blessed and privileged to have Dr. Marshall, who was our founder, take me under his wing and really kind of show me what quality really is, right? Because quality for him, started in tragedy. The company itself actually began in the late 80s because he was poisoned by GMO tryptophan. So if you look up GMO tryptophan on the internet, you literally will see that tryptophan was produced by a GMO organism. And what happened, it created a dimer of tryptophan. So that's two tryptophans connected. That's toxic to humans, like very, very small amounts, like 0.001%.
Right.
Killed hundreds of people, thousands of people were disabled. He was a victim. And because he was a clinical nutritionist, and because he met the co-founder, Dr. Linda Forbes, who survives him because he passed away in 2017,
yes.
the synergy between his blood and guts and her energetic profile, like literally was the most beautiful union, and a little bit of divine intervention saved his life. And the lawsuit started PRL, Premier Research Labs. So you can kind of say quality has been built into our DNA since the beginning.
Absolutely.
And what he did, and he was way ahead of his time. He was looking at clean label 35 years ago. And I could tell you from this industry started recognizing demanding clean label 6, 7 years ago. Like it wasn't that long ago where people like, oh, we should have this. He was way ahead, and people thought he was crazy. They called him purinoids. Purinoid.
Yes.
Like you really think like that's crazy. But I learned a lot. We lost a great man in 2017, and finally, he passed away, and I try to carry on that torch, and really kind of putting into place a lot of the things we had many long nights together on. And what he had me do is create a system like no other. What we do, less than 1% of the industry does.
It's
And
extraordinary.
and the unique perspective I have, which I didn't realize I was even the only CEO from quality in this industry,
Mhm.
is that I have this unique perspective to understand, bottom line cuts. When I see those numbers, and I can understand if I didn't have this, like, oh yeah, we just need to cut here. What does that mean to what you're putting in your body? What you're actually eating,
Right.
right? People
Yes.
forget about this. You're eating this stuff, right?
Yes.
And it's just, and unfortunately, when a banana's rotten, you can see it turns colors, and it's very visual, right? Foods,
Yes.
even though there's ways to hide things. The supplement, that capsule, that's pure, nothing in it, looks exactly like the capsule filled with pesticides, heavy metals, toxins. Um, that there's no, you can't physically tell a difference. It's very hard to. So what we do, we make sure that trust is everything.
Yes.
And we test beyond really what nobody else is doing. And I guess one really good example, and there's so many stories over the years that I've seen, horror stories, really, right?
I've
Um,
heard lots of them from you.
no, one of the big things close to my heart, because I'm a microbiologist by training, right? So I have this background, and I love bugs, fermentation. We do a lot of fermentation here at PRL.
Yes.
But mold, will produce toxins. Like they're another kingdom, and mold is ubiquitous in the environment. Even if you can't see it, it's there. Period.
Everywhere.
And
Yeah.
just leave a piece of bread on the counter, and you'll see in a couple days what happens. Right? Mold will grow. Something will grow. And what people don't realize is, and what's not being tested out there, is for aflatoxins. Some organizations are starting to really highlight it and trying to be, conscious about it. Well, we've been for many years looking at this for our entire botanical supply, including extracts. And why do we do that? Because what we've seen everything from turmeric, cayenne pepper, chase tree, which is for women's health.
Yes.
Um, and I'm not talking about tiny amounts. I'm talking about literally large amount, double, like logarithmic increases. This is 10 times the amount that's even allowed by the regulatory standards that are out there. And this is considered a poisonous carcinogen that
Yes.
literally causes cancer.
Yes.
And nobody is testing for this. Nobody. In fact, many of our vendors will make us test a pre-sample because they won't accept it back because they don't test for it. There's this whole turning a blind eye, because it is a little bit of Pandora's box, right?
Sure.
We actually thought about getting rid of cayenne because we couldn't find anything that didn't have it, and we luckily found some good supply. But it's for interesting reasons this is happening. Not only that they're not testing for it, but the processes that are in place that may have been placed for literally decades, where cayenne is traditionally dried by leaving it on the plant,
Mm.
and that way they don't have to take it off, wash it, dry it that way. They
Sure.
just leave it on the plant, let it dry out, and then they pull it off the plant and grind it up and put it in a bottle. Well, depending on the moisture content, everything out there, all of a sudden you have mold grow, and then you have this poisonous carcinogen populate on there. And nobody's testing for this. So one of the things we guarantee is that every single botanical has been assessed for that. And that's just one thing. We have that, I've seen turmeric painted with lead paint. So in
Imagine.
2012,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, no, turmeric, which is, I
Amazing.
think 70% of the population takes turmeric now, right?
Sure.
So
It's a buzz.
yeah, it's
Right.
huge. And buzz, trends, we'll talk about that a little later,
Yeah.
but we got to always be careful with trends, right? It's more than a trend now. It's in the breadth of the market. So people are using this, and there's a lot of good science behind turmeric. Turmeric's an
Absolutely.
amazing botanical.
Yes.
Its properties from, inflammation support to, gallbladder support. There's so many things. But that being said, in 2012, we got 3,000 fingers of turmeric, and this 3,000 fingers of turmeric, whole turmeric, tested at 1,316 micrograms of lead. That's one. And how much are you allowed by the FDA? 5.
5, and you had
5.
over 1,000, well
Yes,
over 1,000.
because it was painted with lead chromate. So this was something that, this is earlier in my career, and I was like, whoa, what industry did I get myself into? It was kind of shocking. And, we'll talk about some other stories between there, but just to tell you about the story of turmeric, we rejected that a lot. We found a good supplier, and we've always had good turmeric here. But 2019, out of, I believe it was Stanford University, they actually came out with a study saying that they saw it at Bangladesh lead painted turmeric. And they never saw it. There was no other record of coming anywhere else. Well, in 2012, that came out of India. So, it was coming from multiple spots.
Sure.
Move forward to 2023, Popular Mechanics. You can look this up. There's an article talking about this. The government got involved because there were so many poisonings happening. And what happened is there's this concept that bright colors means bright health. And
Right.
with the natural industry, bright colors not always means bright health, like good health. It usually means synthetic in my mind, but I know better.
Yes.
So, a lot of people think, oh, it must be vibrant, it must be good for you. Natural products vary, and just because it's adult, it doesn't mean it's not good. And so we have to, and what they found is that they started like nobody would buy these turmerics unless it was bright. So what happened? These farmers started incorporating lead chromate into the product so that we would buy it. Basically, the West would buy it. And this happened for decades.
So I want to break this down.
Yeah.
So essentially what happened is people thought brightly colored turmeric was better than non-brightly colored turmeric. So the suppliers started brightening it up and sending it. Mm-hmm. And then companies aren't even testing for it. So now people are actually ingesting products that have the lead in it to make it beautifully colored so it looks better and they think they're getting more for their health.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's and this has been happening for a very long time, and that's why I think aflatoxin is kind of the same breath. It's what's it's the status quo. We don't test for it, and my mission is to bring this to knowledge is power.
Yes,
and education of what's happening, so you can ask the right questions.
Yes.
Not to say every turmeric out there is painted. In fact, this helped definitely the government getting involved to help clean up the supply. But there's aflatoxin is something I really think that really needs to be addressed because cancer is on the rise. There and it does more than just that. It actually affects your brain. It's a poison. And we have to bring awareness so people can start asking the right questions and demand better. Extraordinary is what we need to have extraordinary results. And that's why that's one of our values.
And if we're looking to promote our health and we're not getting the best of the best, then we're not really promoting our health. And what's mind-boggling to me, Nick, is that, okay, so Premier Research Labs didn't take that product and that they tested for back in 2012, you said, right? Mm-hmm. But that company was still selling that product, which means that product was still going out in other supplements. I mean, I always warn my clients, like, okay, you're going to, I'm not going to name stores, but you're going to XYZ store and you're picking up something because you think it's super cheap. But what is it that you think you're actually getting? I remember, Dr. Marshall was always so proud of his quality. And I don't know if I ever shared this story with you, but I remember one time walking through the manufacturing facility with him, and he was so excited about the results that he was producing and everything that was coming out that they were finding from the suppliers. And he was going through his story, which we've heard and which we both know well. And I remember he just took his arm and, he made a fist and he brought his elbow right in across his body, like, yes, when he was talking about, yes, we finally did it. We're not putting anything out that's going to harm people. But then the question comes to, like, when I'm hearing you say this and I'm saying, gosh, well, where'd the rest of that product go? Because the supplier didn't stop.
Yeah.
That it's going out other places. And that is what scares me. It's one of the reasons when clients come in, they're like, oh, I'm already taking a turmeric, or oh, I'm already taking a digestive enzyme, or oh, I'm already taking a vitamin D. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that.
No,
that thing.
this is the red herring in this industry is everybody knows this.
Yes.
The FDA knows this.
Yes.
And, FDA does what it can, but it's reactive because we got to remember we're a $67 billion industry.
Right.
That's growing 6 to 8%. And during the 2020 pandemic, it grew 14%. It is growing year over year with the practitioners really driving that with e-commerce.
Yes.
There's a reason they're line in line because practitioners are driving the health span conversation of what you need to take to be healthier, right? They have the knowledge and I always encourage people, go to your practitioner because you can biohack yourself all day. But if you want to experience a level of health you've never experienced before, have a practitioner.
Yeah.
You will never regret it and you will get results faster. You actually end up spending less money than trying. I have horror stories from my wife, who's a nurse practitioner.
Sure.
People spending $40,000, $50,000 doing all this testing when they could have gone to one. And it's another mission of mine to educate about all the different alternative practitioners out there to help make a better choice. Because once again, it's the lack of knowledge, right? People don't even, you can go just ask a regular group of maybe not your listeners because they know a little bit more, but the layman consumer out there, just, hey, tell me the difference between a naturopath, a dietitian, Ayurvedic. We can go down the list and they just look at you like a deer caught in the headlights. In fact, a lot of times they don't even visit an alternative practitioner because the only reason they do is because they lost all their options. I've heard mailers, they get a mailer and they're like, oh, Let me go, I'm going to try this. But what if we gave them that to make a better choice and, really, and so I always say, find the right practitioner. You'll spend less, actually. So I highly encourage that.
Yes. And of course, those of us who are trained from Dr. Marshall and Dr. Forbes, like myself, and the community that we've created, especially the quantum reflex analysis practitioners, the QRA practitioners. What we do is we pinpoint what is it that the body needs. And the beauty of that, Nick, too, is the beauty of being able to do that is not just that we can pinpoint what the body needs in terms of just the organs, glands, and systems, but I do feel like when people learn some of the basics in terms of being able to look at products, then it becomes hands down. You can pick up a product from one company versus another, and you can have the ability to test those products and automatically which one is a good product and which one isn't, right?
And what I love about Cure, and maybe there's a different session we can have about that, but we were built with a quality control system innately into our bodies, through energetics, which is people are starting to understand more and more. There's an awakening happening in this world, which I love, and the science is starting to catch up to Dr. Marshall, if you will,
thankfully,
finally. And so finding the expertise there to help teach you, because once you know how to do that, it opens your eyes. And I've opened my family's eye and they can't believe it. And then you do the other testing and you see, oh yeah, it's contaminated with pesticides. It's contaminated with heavy metals. And we've seen this over and over again. So absolutely, this Cure is something that, which was a kinesiology modality that was developed from other kinesiology modalities that Dr. Marshall and Dr. Forbes created. And Danielle is a student of, and actually more of an expert. I think she's become the teacher now. So which I love. And once again, he was so far ahead. But yeah, no, this what we do to kind of go back to that in terms of the testing, but we're and this is a little bit about the transformative aspect. A lot of companies out there. There's 100,000 brands on the market right now.
Wow, that's a lot of brands.
100,000.
Yes.
Now, let me give you perspective. In 1994, when DSHEA, which is the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, came into place, there was only 4,000. So we've had an explosion over the years. Now, there's only 10,000 manufacturers per se, like that is known, maybe a little less actually now. So a lot of those, there's a lot of brands out there that don't manufacture. So we're actually kind of unique. PRL is a manufacturer. But
Yes.
many people are not manufacturers. They're just virtual brands that use these contract manufacturers that produce for the whole industry. And a lot of times when you see these manufacturers get cited, which we're very proud, we've been audited multiple times by the FDA. We've been USP certified, NSF certified. We're organic. We're kosher. We got all the badges,
You
which
do. You just
I
got
feel
another
the.
A rating, right?
What was
Just
that?
you just got another A rating as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
NSF, and we got 5 minors. We're gonna, the team needs to work on that. But it's actually, I always encourage findings because that's how you improve, right?
Yes.
There's no other way. We have to always improve. It's continual improvement, absolutely. But we've been multiple times audited and 0 findings. And you can actually go to the FDA website, and there's actually a portal now. You can look up your favorite manufacturer, put in their name, and you can look up what they found about them. So I encourage your audience, take a look.
Absolutely.
Look us up. You're going to find nothing. It's going to show when we had the audits, but there's 0 there. But look up everybody else. And if you can't find the manufacturer, when you go in there, let's say it's brand X, then they're not a manufacturer. So
Sure.
they're getting it from somebody else. And so we have to find that manufacturer. And the problem is people don't know. And this is, I had a recent talk with somebody else about the contract manufacturers out there. And, I've heard horror stories of, these manufacturers putting illegal dyes, literally not putting the right materials in. And this happens more often than you possibly can think. Clandestine and economic adulteration not only comes from the supply chain, but it's also right in our backyard with the producers that are making it.
Sure. Shortcuts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always, I've always respected Premier Research Labs as a practitioner because as annoying as it is when things go out of stock, I'm like, okay, well, at least I know what I'm not getting is crap, essentially.
Yeah.
But I mean, tell us about that, because I've heard stories where even when they send you barrels of stuff, like there's maybe good stuff on the top or at the very bottom, but then, the middle is got where they're putting like, what is happening in the supply side that is creating all of this?
So, the trends I mentioned earlier, right? When there's money to be made, I always say the supplement slash, let's call it the food industry, because
Yeah,
for
sure.
us, for at least us, we're very much botanical based. We do have amino acids and other things like that, but we try to stay whole food as much as possible. And the botanicals that we buy, of course, can be also be used for spices and all kinds of stuff. Whenever there's more demand, one of the reasons honey, olive oil are one of the most adulterated items known
Mm-hmm.
to man,
Yes.
to the world, is that because we consume more than we produce. So what happens when an order comes in for these manufacturers that said, "Oh, I need 1,000 keys. I got 500." What do? They cut it. And so what are they cutting it with? Well, with honey, they're doing, they're using sugar beet syrup. They're using different things to cut that. They do exactly the same thing with supplements, herbs especially. Whenever you powder that down, unfortunately, a lot of people think that, oh, this is broccoli. It smells like broccoli, must be it. Well, I can tell you, I've gotten a carrot in that's been colored maltodextrin. Literally,
Wow.
it was you put it in the water and you saw the color come out, and it was literally just flavored and colored maltodextrin. It wasn't carrot. The vendor, and the funny thing is, the vendor's like, "You're the only one complaining." Well, that's scary, right? Because
Very scary. No one else is looking at it then.
and what you said earlier too, that we're not buying everything, and when we
Right.
return it, what are they doing with that material that I rejected, right? There's actually a program out there called Burn It, Don't Return It, because it's a known issue. And they're like, this is just going back in the supply chain. You think they're
Sure.
throwing away hundreds of thousands of dollars? No. They're just finding somebody else that has less quality standards, which there's a plethora out there. And, and you have these things where they're completely giving you something else. There's also the extreme of putting drugs in there, clandestine adulteration, which is the really scary part, for the very popular, categories such as weight loss,
Sure.
for testosterone hormone replacement, menopause now.
Yes.
These other categories like cognitive, even CBD, and actually sports nutrition, believe it or not.
That's
Um,
been coming.
yeah, they're putting in drugs, which are not the actual, tends to be the analogs, which are just these copy or different versions of the drug that
Hmm.
has a clinical effect. But it's
Yeah.
actually what the pharmaceutical companies didn't want to use because it has a different side effect, which
Right.
includes death. And these
Right.
people die for these illegal things that are put on the market. And the FDA has to react when it happens. They don't know. And I've seen pictures of FDA. They're still stopping a lot of stuff at customs, but just like drugs, they're getting through and they're coming here from either abroad. It could be here as well. But this is not something that oh, this happens every. You can look up just different platforms. Just look up FDA, contaminated supplements, and you'll see
Yeah.
plenty of articles because the ease of entry into this industry is so. I mean, anybody could start their own brand.
Right. Right.
You get what you pay for, and there's actually a lot of legal ramifications people don't even know.
Yeah.
And so, what we've seen is everything from this clandestine sibutramine, which is a legal weight loss drug. I've seen literally cinnamon. It was supposed to be a Bermani. This is before we have Ceylon now, but Bermani, which has a lower amount of coumarin in there, and that's what they said it was. And what we do is we actually sample by a three-tiered sampling thief. So what that means is it's basically, think of it like a long stick that's hollow that has holes at three different spots. So when I put it into a barrel that's maybe about 3 feet tall, I get it at different points within the barrel, and then I can test all three. Helps with uniformity, but it's also to see if somebody's trying to cover up something else. And what we
Sure.
found all of a sudden is that the first 6 inches was Bermani. The rest of it was cassia, which is the cheap, high coumarin, which is toxic to the human body, cinnamon.
Wow.
And because they know many people just scoop off the
Yes.
top.
To do
And
the testing.
absolutely. So we take these extra measures because I've seen it. I've seen them and they get smart, right? I've seen these where it's turmeric, and another turmeric story where they literally put a legal dye and basically put a starch that's been colored into the turmeric. Turmeric is a starch naturally because it's a root.
Yeah.
So it's harder to tell. Who we partner with is the best minds in the industry. Our microscopist, the laboratory we use, Flora Research Labs, has been working with the FDA. He actually was trained by the FDA 40 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, and his precision, his eye for things that he was able to identify an irregularity of the aggregation of the starch, which was, I mean, you have to have 40 years experience to see this kind of thing. But once again, we didn't buy everything, and somebody's eating that somewhere. And they do that. They maybe put in other material like a calcium oxalate or just calcium product just to weigh it down. So hey, I'm going to make this. I'm going to cut it with 30% of this calcium product, so I get some extra money in my pocket. And don't think it just comes from everybody wants to blame China or India or something else. This happens in our backyard in the US. And I have to say that it's not just that. It is a matter of you have to be cautious and question what is the testing there. And one of the things I always said, ask whoever you decide to buy from. There is other manufacturers that are good out there, but ask them for the C of A, ask them if they test every lot. And what I said today, ask them if they're testing aflatoxin in every product.
Sure.
Ask them, are you doing identity? A lot of people will do something called FTIR, which is a is a test that you can use in certain cases for uh, different types of more isolates. Like, if I'm dealing with a B vitamin or something of that nature, that it's really good to use. But when you get into botanicals, which are complex matrices, and they're like, well, you're just talking about blueberry powder and that. There's thousands of phytochemicals in there, like literally thousands of. People don't realize that. They think it's blueberry, right? So it's blueberry. No, there's blueberry contains literally thousands of different things.
Yes.
And when you extract that, you actually can, depending on what you extract with, you can actually have different ratios of the chemicals, which actually have different side effects. So when people, I always think it's crazy when they say, "Oh yeah, it's simple stuff." No, it's not actually. It's actually one of the more complicated items that actually can change from lot to lot that you get in, which thus is the color I was talking about with turmeric. So,
Right.
you have to have the right people. You have to have, in the ease of entry allows a lot of people with no knowledge to come in this industry and say, "Hey, let me make a product," and they may not even see the product, meaning that they tell a company to produce it, they give it to another person to sell it, they have somebody else make their website, and they never touch that product ever in the life cycle of that to your mouth. And do you trust that? Is a
Yeah.
question.
I mean, that's where the education comes in, though, right,
Mhm.
Nick? Because, like you said, a part of what your commitment is to raise this knowledge and information, bring it to the industry forefront so that, companies are paying attention. But a lot of times people don't know the difference. It's no different with our regular diets, right? We all kind of grow up on the standard American diet. We don't think twice about the standard American diet being bad for us. I grew up
Mhm.
on McDonald's and Carvel when I was
Yeah.
young. Nobody thought there was anything
Mhm.
wrong with that
Yeah.
until you realize, like, oh my gosh, maybe there is something that's off with that. Maybe those things, even though you can buy them in the store, maybe they're not really what's best for your body. And I hear just kind of that same parallel
Yeah.
at the more micro level as to what's happening in the industry. And what's scary is, you know, our supplements, they should be, I know Premier Research Labs, it's mostly, I tell people it's food in a capsule. We're putting food into a capsule
Mhm.
that you might not otherwise be getting.
Yeah.
But now if that food isn't actually what that food's supposed to be, then it's not
Mhm.
having that impact. So a normal food, quote unquote, that we take in shouldn't have severe side effects. And
Yeah.
yet then it becomes, doctors get worried up, don't take those supplements, they're dangerous. But it's
Mhm.
not that the supplements is dangerous, it's the ones that are adulterated that are creating the issues that kind of colors it and
Yeah.
and gives it a bad rep, I think. I don't know, you tell me.
Well, and I think that you get what you pay for in this
Yeah,
industry. People have to understand. They're always like, "Oh, they're so much cheaper." We have this.
true.
Just you have to realize that there's a minimum level required to do the quality. It's
Yes.
not free, unfortunately. I wish it was,
Yes.
but quality is costly.
Right.
And as much as we try to keep costs down, try to find sourcing, and just try to keep with the market, but at the end of the day, if you whatever you're eating, and when I always Dr. Marshall always said, ask yourself, would you eat it? And he
Yeah.
says, if you can't say yes, do not sell it. And that's the simplest thing, quality aspect I've ever heard from anyone. And I live by that. And
Yeah.
so it costs more to have a high quality
Sure.
material. You can get any botanical at any price. I can tell you that there's places in the world that will sell you $1 for green tea extract. It's probably not going to be all green tea extract. I'm not going to, it's that's just what you're going to get, but they'll call it green tea extract, right? All day. And, they'll sell you the mark, which is actually what's left over after you extract out all the active chemicals in there,
Right.
meaning the phytochemicals that are good for, would give it a clinical effect.
Yes.
Um, they'll sell what usually it's used for compost or feed or something like that. They'll sell that. And that's your dollar green extract. It's
Yeah.
cheap. It doesn't do anything. It's literally just a filler, right? And but maybe it's organic because it's water extracted, and now you can put it on a label, and then they charge you even more. And
Nope.
that's the crazy thing, right? This organic. There's a drive in this industry to see organic, but we even experienced where we got a valerian root extract in that was supposed to be an organic. valerian extract. And when we did the HPTLC, which is high performance thin layer chromatography, which is basically, think of it as a fingerprint of the active chemicals in a plant that give it its chemical, like its clinical effect. And you basically take the plant and you take standards. These are other botanicals that have been verified by botanists, and you
Yes.
put it together right by side. And if you know what it looks like, you can look this up. It's very simple. Does this picture look like this picture? And my 6-year-old could do this and says, "Oh, it doesn't look." And what we saw, literally, the active chemicals were out because they had extracted out and sold it. So it happens to everyone. And
Sure.
and people are like, well, I'm not going to be fooled, right? I'm not susceptible to this. These are people that don't know. My father, which I love, my father, and he's been
Of course.
hearing my presentations since 2017. And I'm going to call him out on this. He'll probably hear this and tell me later. But he bought these keto gummies. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is this?
They look good. They were on
It
Instagram.
was on Dr. Oz, right? Or I forgot. No, it was on Shark Tank. That's what he
There
told
you go.
me. And I had to tell him there was never been keto gummies on Shark Tank. So it happens to everyone, and it can happen to everyone. You have to look at the signs, and something, a couple red flags to let your audience know about. Always look on the label. There has to be an address on there. But sometimes it says manufactured by or distributed by. If it says distributed by, that means they didn't manufacture it. That's first. Just know that. Doesn't mean it's bad. I'm just saying it's not made by them, whoever the brand is. But if it doesn't have it there, the reason it doesn't have it there because they're not making it to GMP standards, and they don't want anybody to know where they're at. So if you don't see it,
It's a concern.
very big concern. Also, if it doesn't say on the front panel dietary supplements, and you just see this flashy, marketing has a beautiful flower on there, but it literally doesn't say on the front panel dietary supplement, be questioning that, because that's a basic thing that I always look for to say, what is that? Because that is something that must be there. And it's just these little things that you think are, they must have just forgot. That's not, you don't just forget those things. Those are basic foundational items that they're not there. There's a reason for it. And, we've even gone to other manufacturers looking for partners that say, which we couldn't find them, and they wouldn't even let us into the manufacturing facility. Why?
Huh.
Because they were producing vape pens used for B vitamins. Now, you're like, what's wrong with that? Well, actually, the DSHEA, basically how they define a supplement, you must ingest it. So anything that's not ingested, like literally swallowed, is like IVs, vape pens, even if they're vitamins, they're considered drugs. And so they're under a different regulation, which means if they're not even doing it to the right regulations, it means they're not taking the safety precautions, they're not doing the proper steps. And they knew this when we went there. It wouldn't even let us into the facility. They had a window. They said, you can look there, but that's all you can go to.
Oh gosh.
And we had to, like, why do you invite us here then?
What are we doing here? We didn't look in the windows. We don't want to
but this does happen. And, you just got to understand, when they're taking these steps, be cautious. Be cautious about all these hype claims like, oh, this is the most bioavailable. This is, this new protein connected to this turmeric, and it's now the greatest thing on earth. Because, did they do a safety study? Because there's actually a requirement by the DSHEA Act, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, that requires any new supplement on the market that's been created that wasn't in commerce before October 15th, 1994. That's the grandfather date. Has to be proven for safety, not efficacy, safety. And you have to do like a 90-day study, all this. And let me ask you, I told you there was 4,000 supplements in a market in October of 1591, and there's 100,000 now. How many do you think submissions have there been to FDA?
I'm guessing not enough.
It's been like 1,300, and it doesn't really climb much.
1,300.
Yeah.
Wow.
With like 96,000 more supplements. So it just kind of gives you perspective of, are the right things happening? No. So you got to do, there's a lot of need for self-regulation. There's a need to ask the right questions. And, there's you got to look for these little signs. If the claim is too good to be true,
It probably
Question is, well, yeah, right. It's most likely is, you're not going to lose 40 pounds in a day. You're not going to grow through 3 inches. Whatever the claim is out there that they say that it's going to do, that's beyond belief. Do not buy that, because most likely, you're taking a huge risk if you do.
yeah.
And there's either it could be drugs or it could be just filler. And so you just have to be cautious. You're eating this stuff. You're
Yeah.
putting it in your body.
Yes. Yeah. Even if it's a supplement, it's still no different. It's
Yeah.
funny when people are like, "Oh, I won't eat a donut, but I'll take whatever is out there in terms of a supplement." And I'm like, "There's something wrong here. We've got to go back and get that." And that brings me to a really important thing, Nick, that I want us to touch on, and
Mhm.
that is that there even are some companies out there that are known as the better companies or bigger companies or so on and so forth, and these companies are using, what we call excipients
Mhm.
in their products: the
Mhm.
magnesium stearate, the microcrystalline cellulose, the stearic acid, the food dyes.
Mhm.
I mean, talk to me a little bit about that, because my
Yeah.
understanding is, yeah, these things are generally recognized as safe, which
Mhm.
means basically they're innocent until proven guilty, right?
Absolutely. So this is the aspect I talked about earlier about where the purinoids, right? Dr.
Yeah.
Marshall was a purinoid because he realized that, and he asked the question, why would I put in something that had no nutritional value? First of all, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't actually do anything for the body. It is
Right.
literally there to help with efficiency or to cover something up, the dyes and all that. So, magnesium stearate. Go ahead.
Efficiency, you mean the way it goes through the manufacturing process? Like, you can go through the machine faster so it can produce more in less time.
Yeah, so there is materials, these excipients that are out there that have been used by pharmaceutical industries and supplement companies to reduce the amount of loss, which increases profitability. Dr.
Sure.
Marshall decided 35 years ago, I'm not going to, going from that tragedy, he didn't want to put anything in there that's non-nutritive and
Thank
something that
God.
may help, actually may hurt you.
Yes.
So he said no. And in fact, when he first got his first piece of equipment, I don't know if he ever told you this story, of an encapsulator. He said
Yes.
he got it in. The person came in to train him on it and said, give me the formula. What excipient are you using? And he goes, what are you talking about? We're not using excipients. And he looked at him and he says, well, you're not going to be able to run. And Dr. Marshall was like, no, we are going to run. We're going to figure this out. And the
Yes.
trainer walked out on him. And he
Yes.
said, you're not going to be able to do this. Well, that was a challenge. So,
Dr. Marshall, he was stubborn. He was like,
he was,
It's gonna be this way. And he said, "Thank
exactly.
you," right? Thank
Yeah,
you for
thank
walking
you.
out. Thank you, because now I got to figure it out.
Absolutely. And he powered through. And when we first started, we had like 20% loss on our runs. What we did together, me and Dr. Marshall, is figure out alternatives that worked mimic. Are they going to be as good as these, non-nutritive except absolutely not. Never. And then people have been trying to figure out how to make a, mock magnesium steroid, if you will. It's never as good. But using nutrient items like rice bran and these other kind of items in there that they're not going to harm you like magnesium stearate that may hold formaldehyde actually in it.
Yeah.
So the
Can you take a step back, Nick? Why
yeah.
should we be worried about magnesium stearate? Because most people are so used to seeing it on the other ingredients on the supplement label, right? They're like, oh, this is all, it's got all these great things. Look, it's got vitamin C and it's got this herb and that herb, and it's really great. And then they get to the bottom of that list where it says other ingredients. And the first one on there, usually it's the capsule, right? And then right after that, it's magnesium stearate.
So
Why are
many
you concerned?
So magnesium stearate, which is probably one of the most common
Yep.
flow agents out there, excipients out there, are used to help with the process. And what magnesium stearate has really yes, it has magnesium in there, but it's not going to be bioavailable. First of all, it's not like a magnesium glycinate. You don't see anybody taking magnesium stearate at huge amounts. It's not going to have a chelated form that actually absorbs in the body. So don't
Yes.
think it's going to be the perfect. It's actually really more of like a mag oxide, which people that know is like the most non-bioavailable form that you can get.
Yes.
So you have this magnesium stearate, not really highly bioavailable, non really nutritive, and then during the magnesium stearate, these excipients will hold on to breakdown products. Carbon breaks down into formaldehyde. Everything does, and this
Huh.
material literally will hold on to it and have it within the material. So think about that. So our bodies are built to detoxify, but everything is dose dependent.
Sure.
So, especially people that are trying to heal themselves in whatever way, you don't want to add in formaldehyde. You don't want to add in aflatoxin. You're trying to avoid these things to
Yeah.
heal, right? Because
Right.
it just makes your body work harder. And so people don't even realize it, but they're taking in this material that could have formaldehyde in it, and just kind of you're working against yourself. You're going up your uphill battle here that it's going to hurt you. There's no nutrient value. It's really just for the company to make more profit.
Right.
So we have always taken the stance that's not coming into our facility. It's not going to be here. We're never going to use it
Yeah.
because I would never eat it.
Right.
Period. And so I have to ask myself, would I give it to my kids? Absolutely not. So, and that's what I have to look at. I give everything we take. A lot of the stuff I designed recently has been for my kids and my family and trying to find solutions for them, but I'm not going to give them that and I don't think you expect that either from these manufacturers, but they're not thinking about that. They're looking at that bottom line, as a
Right.
business always should, right? You have to
Yeah.
you got to be profitable to run a business and help people. But we're here for changing people's lives. We're here to transform them. And the only way you do that is not by adding more toxins to the body.
Right. And I think sometimes too, a lot of these manufacturers, they get caught up, yes, looking at the profit numbers, but they're looking at just the ingredients that are going on. Albeit, I think we've covered how they're not even looking at the quality all the time and doing all the testing that's necessary to look at that. So when that end result comes in, it ends up not being what's beneficial. I know our clients always do amazing on Premier Research Labs products, right? I mean, we do quantum reflex analysis. I test them. I give them exactly what it is that their body needs, and that makes a huge difference. But I can't do that with any product on the market because unless that product is a good quality product, it doesn't have the same impact on the body. And therein lies a problem. A supplement is not a supplement.
No, it's this is food, and people have to understand it. Also, it translates to the food supply. So don't think it's just supplements. The things I'm talking about could be in your cabinet right now, right? And I don't want people to go out there and just throw away everything in your cabinet. And so we do have a ginger, but in turmeric. But that being said, what I'm talking about are powders of turmeric, powders of ginger. I got a rosemary in, for example, that it was rosemary. It was 70% rosemary, 30% something else. Many other companies would have been, oh, it's rosemary. I wouldn't eat that. I don't know what the other 30% is. It's 30% organic matter, right? So we're dealing with farms that come from the soil. You're going to get natural organic stuff, right? And there's allowed like 2.5% is usually the allowable limits, maybe 3, depending what you're getting. 30%, it's like they swept off the ground everything to put into your batch, and that's what you got. Would you eat that? And you got to ask yourself, you're putting this in your body. And, I wouldn't give it to my kids, my parents, hopefully not your neighbors, maybe the neighbor, I don't know. But that being said, we just we take that higher road, and sometimes that leads to a back order, and it's hard because you're like, man, it is, but at the end of the day, I'm not giving that to anybody because I wouldn't eat it.
When those practitioners come knocking on your door, hey Nick,
Yes.
there goes Daniel again.
No. It's because we're trying to find the limited supply out there. There's such high quality. The 70% of the materials that we sample fail quality testing from us.
Wait, hold on. I want you to repeat that one more time because that is really significant.
Yeah, no, and when I said about the trends like berberine, for example, it's a product we're going to be coming out with soon. The reason we haven't had it for a long time is because we couldn't find anything that was actually berberine.
So
Like,
how is it the hottest thing on the market when none of it out there is actually berberine? That makes my head spin.
yeah, it's a marketing is a powerful, powerful tool for companies.
Yes.
And, it's about changing people's minds. And
Yeah.
there's people who are experts at that. But for not to see what's really out there but unfortunately, there's an opportunity in everybody's mind when they see this. They see a TikTok trend, they see an influencer talk about this, and they're like, oh, let's piggyback on that train right
Right.
there and let's make something. And I'm going to go call this manufacturer, but I wanted the cheapest you can give me to hire, make the highest amount of profit. And that's what goes on the market. And these raw material vendors know this, and they start putting out cheap material. Once again, you get what you pay for. And but for us, like we couldn't find anything, and we finally found material. It's the highest quality material we could possibly find. My concern in the future, can we find more? Because there really is a cutting. We found stuff that was 70%, 20 stuff that was not even berberine that was being sold as berberine.
Wow.
So like that, and that's something right now, and it's just be very cautious on trends, because that is where whenever anything's trending, you can absolutely be confident that there's a high percentage out there what's on the market that's not really what they say it is, especially if it's a company you never heard of, that's never has no history, maybe it's only on TikTok, or something of that nature, or just on there's hundreds of brands on Amazon that you got
Sure.
to be careful, right? There's a lot of counterfeit on Amazon. Always buy directly from the practitioner or the actual brand itself, because
Yeah.
Amazon does have this like sharing thing, so you got to be very careful with that. So always encourage
Yes.
people to buy through their practitioners or through the brand itself. So
Absolutely.
I just you got to be careful,
Yeah.
because you're dealing with stuff you're putting in your body.
Yeah, 100%. And the Amazon thing has been a very big and growing problem. I
Mhm.
know I'm always telling my clients, do not buy anything you're going to put
Mhm.
into your body off of Amazon. You want to buy a book? Go for it. You're going to put something in your body. Do
Yeah.
not buy it off of Amazon. As
Mhm.
I have heard horror stories from fellow practitioners who,
Mhm.
their clients having adverse reaction to different supplements that they thought was what they thought it was, and it
Mhm.
wasn't that at all. I've seen clients send pictures of a product that's supposed to be a CoQ10, and I'm looking at the pictures and I'm like, yeah, that's not doesn't look like what it's supposed to look like.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that from? Amazon. So it's a pretty big.
Benefit's a big deal, and it's happening a lot. And I
Yeah.
know they're trying to do something about it, but just the practitioner's done the work for you. That's another aspect of that. That's a great thing of having a practitioner.
Yes.
They're the ones doing the research. They're the ones looking in to make sure you're getting the highest quality. If you have a good practitioner, of course,
Yes.
there's all ranges of practitioners, but they're in general they're your advocate. They're your knowledge base, and they're your solution to health.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Nick, is there anything else we should be on the lookout for in terms of you know what it is that we're looking for when we're looking for supplements, we're shopping for supplements, we're clearly making sure product is a product, we have a good manufacturer, reading those labels to making sure
Mhm.
that there's not any excipients in there like magnesium stearate, and because that is one of the biggest ones that we see all the time.
Yeah. One other, I think, thing, when you actually get the bottle itself and you open it up, let's say you're trying a new manufacturer, you think you've done all your research, right? And you open that bottle and things happen. I got to say that, in operations, things happen, right?
Sure.
And I've even seen ground glass in literally in powders before, not because they intentionally did, but because the vendor actually had grind the material and it fell in. They didn't even know about it, right?
Sure.
So things happen, and hopefully you catch it through your quality control. But the basic quality control you could do is try two things. Take when you open that bottle, look at the material that's in there. If you see variation in color, unless they specifically call it out, like they're talking about, I'm talking about like red capsules, green capsules. Be cautious. You just talked about it like a CoQ10, and I remember this picture, and it's like that's not what we made.
Yeah.
So you gotta then we looking at counterfeits, right?
Yes.
Then take that capsule and literally put it in water And what you're gonna see, depending on what it is, it could be water soluble or not. But if you see think of it, you can do an example of it. Take a dye and put it into another water. You can see it disperse, right? It kind of clouds out. And this is kind of what we did literally with the carrot I talked about before.
Sure.
You can tell if it's just been dyed for that color. And so it's a quick, easy test. Maybe you waste a capsule, but it's something that is so inexpensive. You could do at home
Sure.
and it's very visual. But if you see a bloom of anything that looks like a dye, be careful. Unless it's like, if it says on their food coloring or something like that you're aware of,
It
doesn't
shouldn't
say
be in
that.
your supplements anyway.
No, it shouldn't be any there. But if you know that's there, always realize that. I don't want people to go there and, oh, it's there, but it says it on the label. Hey, that's you got to look out for those things. But that's a quick way to see that maybe they put something in there that shouldn't be there. So we even do that test for certain materials that come in that we question. It's very quick and easy, and it's a lot cheaper than sending it out to a laboratory to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, these visual aspects, if it smells off, looks weird, question it. Ask the manufacturer. If they're not willing to share something, if they don't even answer the phone, and even in sometimes I understand things get busy, but email them, you don't hear a response, I wouldn't eat it.
Yes.
So, and that's my recommendation. Go back to your practitioner, ask them first, but let's say the practitioner can't, go to yourself. You're the one eating at the end of the day. Find out. And if you don't get an answer, hopefully your practitioner helps you. But if they don't, go back to that manufacturer and ask them directly. And if they're a reputable manufacturer, they'll answer you.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick. I know, so for all of our listeners, Nick has shared with us an outstanding presentation with some visuals. So if you're listening to this on the audio podcast and you want to get a look at some of the different tests and some of the different results that he's talked about, there is a link to that presentation that will be right in with the podcast description. And of course, you guys, my Premier Research Labs is a company that is near and dear to my heart. And I know that they are extending a special discount for all of our listeners. So those of you who are listening, you can find the link that will be in the description of the podcast here, or you can go direct to prlabs.com and use code
Dr. D15
to go ahead and get your discount there. So thank you so much, Nick. Thank you for being here. Any last closing words of wisdom for our listeners to take on as they empower their health and their journey?
Expect extraordinary. Do not settle for the status quo.
Yes.
If you really want to take your level of health to just something you haven't experienced before, you have to go beyond what's considered the norm. And that's, embrace the practitioner, embrace better quality. I think that's the only way you're going to have that transformation you've been seeking. And you'll feel it. That's a great thing.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you brought to mind something for me. I go to a lot of different health conferences and things like that, and some that are very prestigious and highly recognized, and there is always supplement vendors there. And thankfully, I have the ability to test any product using quantum reflex analysis, and it's mind-boggling, the stuff that's out there. And I'm not talking about, sometimes it's not just about cost, right? Because I'll find supplements that are $100, $200, and I'm testing it and I'm saying, there's no way. There's just no way. So yeah, aim for that extraordinary, because I think that is so key and pivotal. So thank you so much for being here. And everyone, be sure to check the description so you can take advantage of the discount, so you can take a look at some of the stuff that Nick was talking about. I will tell you, when you see it with your eyes and you look at the difference of what they're seeing under the microscope and stuff, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that this actually takes place. So Nick, thank you for having that level of integrity. Thank you for, taking on Dr. Marshall's legacy and carrying it forward, and for having a place where people can come to and feel safe and comfortable and confident that what they're actually using to enhance their health is, in fact, enhancing the health.
Thank you, Dr. D. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. This is Dr. D, reminding you to tune into your body, reconnect with what matters, and embrace the journey to true wellness. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to redefine their health. Let's keep redefining wellness and empowering change together. See you next Thursday for the next episode drop.